So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Church in Ocean Park on this wise, wild, wonderful Mothering Sunday. We've got a great panel of wise, wild, wonderful mothering women, and also, and as my mother would say, just looking forward, we are going to have a panel when we get to Father's Day. So all you marvelous, magnificent men, just you'll get your turn, and we need to celebrate everybody because we're here at the church at Ocean Park, and it is one of our strengths, celebrating so many different kinds of people. So I kept thinking, what would be a good song for starting us off today, and going for one of the old classics. So please put yourselves on mute, but sing real loud in your Zoom room. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. All right. And I'm coming to you today from Denver, so I'm totally confused about what time it is, but but I'm glad to be here. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Do it again. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. Do. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. So I held my head and I cried. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. All right, take a good stretch, everybody, and we'll sing it one more time. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Welcome to the Church in Ocean Park on this wild, wise, wonderful Mothering Sunday. Welcome. All right, Rachel Rose, you're on. Woo!
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Church in Ocean Park. The Church in Ocean Park is a caring interfaith congregation. We celebrate diversity, treating ourselves and others with respect. Our gatherings support, educate, and challenge us in our relationships to self, others, and the world. Embracing creative expression, singing at every opportunity, and working for social justice are all parts of our spiritual life together. You may be wondering if you are welcome. Well, let me tell you, we are an interfaith community, so you are welcome if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Wiccan, atheist, or some combination or something else altogether. We extend a special invitation to those who are single, married, divorced, gay, transgender, very rich, or living paycheck to paycheck. We extend a special invitation to those who are crying newborns. I guess it's carrying newborns. Oh, crying newborns. That's weird. Just just browsing, just woke up, or just got out of jail. We don't care if you're more religious than the Pope or haven't been in the synagogue since your nephew's bar mitzvah. We extend a special invitation to those who are over 60, which is me as of last April, but not grown up yet, which is also me. That's the one part I really love about the welcome. And to teenagers who are growing up too fast. We invite soccer moms, tree huggers, latte slippers, vegetarians, junk food eaters. We invite those who are in recovery or still addicted. We invite you if you're having problems or you're down in the dumps, or if you don't like quote unquote organized religion, or if you are standing in the need of prayer. We offer a special invitation to those who work too hard, don't work, have lost their jobs because of the pandemic, or are frontline workers. We welcome those who can spell or because they are bored with staying home all day and are way tired of being on Zoom, but heard that this is a strange church and wanted to check it out. We invite those who are inked, pierced, or both. We invite tourists, seekers, and doubters, bleeding hearts, and you. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park.
Yes, welcome, welcome. Well, you may be wondering, who is this strange person? And to tell you the truth, I was a crying newborn. My mother used to tell me from the day I came out into the world, I was crying, and I was always crying after that. She said I was a crying baby. When I was full, I cried. When I was hungry, I cried. I was always crying, she said. And maybe that's why I don't cry too much now. Anyhow, we are here to welcome you, and we give God thanks for his mercies and for his great goodness. So, who is this strange person? I am Joseph Hepburn, and I am carrying on in place of the pastor, Reverend Janet McKeithen, who is presently on sabbatical. She may be in France right now, but I'm sure she may be listening on as we continue worship here today. So welcome, welcome on this wonderful Mother's Day. Before we continue, I have a land acknowledgement. We, the people of the church in Ocean Park, recognize that our building in Santa Monica, California, sits on stolen land. We, the settlers of this land, honor the Kish, the Tongva, and the Chumash peoples. We acknowledge the harms of genocide, enslavement, forced assimilation, and destruction of sacred sites, the burial of historic truths, and indigenous suffering at the hands of US settler colonialism. We also acknowledge that our communities and country were built on the backs of people stolen from Africa, placed into bondage, forced into labor. We acknowledge that we benefit from that labor, and that has never been repaid. In acknowledgement, let us then commit ourselves to healing by helping to create a more just and equitable world through the struggle of changing how we do things that we see as normal, that support the systems that oppress people. We acknowledge and we apologize for the harm by pledging ourselves to be part of the culture of repair. So with this, we are going to carry on with the chant for today from Louise.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you as usual. And I like to get into the moment, into the present, by singing this Thich Nhat Hanh chant. I have arrived, I am home in the here and in the now, and we'll do it 3 times. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. Kim.
Now, I actually have a reading this morning, and I have to say that here I am in Denver, and I do have to acknowledge that I'm on the land that was stolen from the Apaches, the Utes, the Cheyennes, Comanches, and the Arapahoes. And so grateful to be here in Denver. And the reading today comes from the Gospel of John in the Christian scriptures, and it's a story about Jesus and his mother. So here's how it begins. The Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. And I have to say that because my mother, who's sitting right here, she always says, you never say what chapter and verse it is. So now you don't say it like that, Mom, sorry. but sometimes you do anyway. So here's John, reading from John. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there, and Jesus and his friends were also invited to the wedding. Now, when the wine ran short, the mother of Jesus came over to him and said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, how does your concern affect me? My hour has not yet come." But Jesus' mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone jars that were there for the Jewish ceremonial washings, and each of those jars held 20 to 30 gallons of water. And Jesus told them, "Fill the jars with water." And so they filled those jars up to the brim. And then Jesus said to those servants, "Draw some water out now and take it over to the head server." And so they did. And when the head server tasted the water that had become wine, without knowing where it came from, although the servers, they had seen what Jesus did and they knew where the water came from, but the head server said to the bridegroom, "What is this? Everybody usually serves the good wine first. And then when the people have drunk freely, then they bring out an inferior wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." Now Jesus did this as the beginning of his signs in Cana in Galilee, to reveal his glory, and his disciples began to believe it. And then after this, he and his mother and his brothers and friends, they all went down to Capernaum, where they stayed for only a few days. Well, so ends this reading of Jesus getting a little bit smart with his mother, but his mother really being the smart one and knowing what to do. Amen.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. I have a song here called Mother of Mine. And, I don't know who wrote it. It's someone from the UK, but I could not find the author. But it's an interesting song. I know you'll see that. Well, would I sit under shady tree told me in the garden where as a girl I ran free. In the garden she tended carefully, there with the beauty, the briars and the thorns, for the way in which all women were bound. From the garden I watched the world and hoped it would be a better place for a little girl. Mother, oh mother of mine, in my hips and in my eyes. Mother, oh mother of mine, in my sorrow and in my joy. Few shall like tears of blood dripping within my reach, blooms of every color of life, some for each. Over time she brought them forth from old wisdoms of the earth. Independence, bluebells of truth, they have all grown here since my youth, where she planted such seeds of worth, so that I never would give up hope. Mother, oh mother of mine, in my hips and in my eyes. Mother, oh mother of mine, in my sorrow and in my joy. Mother, oh mother of mine, in my hips and in my eyes. Mother, oh mother of mine, in my sorrow and in my joy.
Wow, Louise. Always just find these really great songs now. A lot to reflect on in that song. Well, today we have a group of mothers, and we're all going to speak, about some of our experience. Now, when we think about people who are mothers, I think Chuck, when you got on this morning, you said, well, mother isn't necessarily about sex. It's about being there. It's about presence, really. And yes, indeed. Certainly agree with that. So our mothers we have today are Jean Gasca and Gaile Price, and my mom, Mama iJoy, and me. So I guess we'll start with the most seasoned of the mothers, and that would be my mom. So, Mom, you know how to unmute yourself, right? All right, so unmute yourself there, Mom. All right, you're gonna have to unmute. Oh, there you are. Now, my mother always says to me, when you came out, I said, ouch, ouch, ouch. So yeah.
That's right. And that's where the wise, wild, wonderful women come from the beginning. Women are wise. They know many, many things, and they are just wonderful. They have to clean, they have to cook, they have to run around, they have to clear it all around in the floor, something spills. They listen. And you know what else they do? They wonder a lot, and they pray, and they say, ow. And I would like everyone to say, ow, unmute yourself for just a second, right? And then say,
Here we go.
ow. Right, that's right. And that's a wise, wild, wonderful woman.
Now, Mom, I know there's something that you always say, and it's one of the things that you really have been passionate about, and it has to do with spanking of children. What do you say?
Well,
Tell us.
I said, you know, when you hit a child, you're gonna have to hit them all the time, you know, and it's just not right. So don't hit your children because it causes violence in the world. And you think about that a minute, it starts very early in the life of a child. They say, I can't hit you now, but when you get older, I'm gonna push your wheelchair funny. I'll get back at you. And you know, they keep that in their hearts. And so we know that it's gradual. If you keep hitting them, they hit other people later on.
Yeah, so don't hit your children. It causes violence in the world. So thank you, Mama iJoy, and thanks for being my mommy.
Oh, yes, right. I'll get you good, girl. Let's get you later.
Uh-huh. Oh, indeed, yes. So Jean Gasca.
Hi. Well, what I wanted to say today is that mothering is a skill. It's a way of being, it's a behavior. So it's not necessarily people who are mothers who mother other people. It's people of both genders, of all genders, who mother other people. And the way they do that is they have unconditional love for people, and they treat the other person as if there's nothing more important in that moment than that other person, with eye contact. And Gail was talking about that before we started. You know, getting down on the floor with a child or talking to an adult. It's all mothering. There are people in this church who don't have children who mother us. They take care of us. So what I wanted to say about this is my own mother was not a nurturer. She didn't know how to nurture. I was very lucky. We had a roof over our heads. We had clothing. We went to school. All those basics were taken care of, but there was not nurturing that happened. And I didn't know what I was doing when I was in high school and college, but I was looking for a mother. And I found that mother in so many different people. One of my best mothers was a male professor at UCLA, Dr. Austin McInnes. He was my boss. I was his lab assistant, and he mothered me. He took care of me. He looked me right in the eye and told me how much he valued my work. And other mothers that I found, there was a secretary in the secretarial pool in the chemistry building, and I worked there for about a year when I first got to UCLA, and she mothered me. I had a chemistry professor who wasn't really mothering, but he was so caring. And I had other chemistry professors who, when I went in, they acted as if I was silly, that I didn't understand the material. What is so hard about this? Or they would show me one time and I would ask a question and they would say, I just explained it to you. Well, that's not mothering. Mothering is, wow, you're still not understanding. Let me think of a way to talk to you about this so that you will understand, because that gives value to that other person's experience. So when I had my first baby, I looked for mothers and I found them in La Leche League, you know, a breastfeeding community. And I learned how to take care of a baby, not from my own mother, who freaked out when she came over when I had a baby, just absolutely lost it. And I had to tell her to go home. I had to say, Mom, you know what? It's just too much for you. Why don't you go home and take a rest? And she did that. So looking back, I can laugh about it, but it was not laughable at the time. And then as my children grew, I looked for other places that would nurture them. And I found Manhattan Beach Nursery School, which was just like Play Mountain. And then I found Play Mountain, where Gail and Hurley Jim were. And you know how great mothers both of them are. So, and then of course there's Church in Ocean Park that mothers all of us. So what I really wanted to say was that mothering is a capacity to love other people, and it doesn't matter who you are, whether you are an actual mother, whether you are male or female or something else.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you. And Gail, Now, Gail, your camera keeps going up. We're like,
I know, I keep changing positions. So there, hopefully that'll be better.
because we want to see you. And we had this wonderful conversation before everybody got on about baby college. And that was so cool. But Gail, thanks so much for being part of this group. So
Sure.
what do you want to say, Gail?
First, I want to say, and I said this earlier, is how thrilled I am and honored to be part of this, because as many of you know, my mother passed away when I was 9. So it's been well over 50 years since I have had her here and now mothering. And she also died the day before Mother's Day. So I've always hated this holiday for many reasons. So and that couldn't feel part of it. I couldn't relate. So it means a great deal to me to be included. And I have a picture of my mom that I wanted to show because I want to honor her. Her name was Noreen. She was she was an academic. She was Dr. Noreen Price. So, and I've always wondered, because, you know, I do consider myself, and I've been told I'm very empathetic. And, you know, being with children in the way that I am came very naturally in a lot of ways. And I always wondered, where did that come from? Because sure didn't come from my stepmother. And I think it was because I don't have a lot of memories of my mom. I don't remember anything her telling me, but I know she loved me. And I know she accepted every part of me. And I was very sensitive and a little bit difficult child. And, but I knew absolutely that she loved every part of me. And I got a lot of freedom. My parents gave us a lot of freedom and love, not huggy. My mother was not a huggy Mother Earth type of person. I know. But like I said, I always knew that. So I know I got that, because I don't think you can give what you haven't gotten. I feel very blessed to have had if it was only 9 years, it was 9 years.
I was going to say, somehow did you pass that along in baby college?
Yeah. Well, I hope I did. You talked about what's, you know, is there a motto, mother motto? And I would say my motto is one of the many is your children's behavior is their communication. They're trying to tell you something. Listen to it. Don't judge it. Listen to it. If they're screaming and yelling, they're trying to tell you, I'm in distress. I need something, and I'm here to just accept it and take it in. And you spoke of baby college. This is a program that I helped start in Boyle Heights, which was a program for families. It wasn't just the children, but you know, we wanted to give children and families the most highest quality of interaction. Because when you meet children's needs, when you meet parents' needs, they can thrive. And I saw that at our program. I mean, children who were, you know, not doing well, essentially, when they first came, and parents who were not doing well, I saw them blossom. I saw them bloom. And I knew, and I've always known in my heart that when you meet their needs, you meet them where they are, and you are loving, compassionate, non-judgmental, they're going to thrive. So I would say that's one of my mottos, so to speak. I do feel very blessed to have been able to do those skills and share with others, because I get a tremendous amount of joy. Nothing like watching a child, like their lights go on, and hearing their vision of the world, of their world and their inner life. There's nothing more special to me than that, and being part of that. I know I was driven to this field because I lost my mom. And I didn't want other children to feel that pain. And, many children lose their parts of their moms when their moms are still here. Usually not because the mothers didn't try, but I've been able to heal myself in many ways through my work with children, through my works with parents, surrounding myself with that compassion and that love and that joy. I loved that song, Louise. That just like reminded me of my mom. That's one of the few memories I have, a memory of her working in the garden. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Gail. As we were gathering and she is beautiful.
Thank you. I think so.
Mm. Well, I guess I'll go last on our quote unquote panel, right? But thanks so much. Thanks so much, Gail.
Sure.
So when I was thinking about mothering, I was thinking about Jesus and his mother, and it was Chaplain Joseph that said, "Well, why don't we read a story about Jesus and his mother?" And I thought about and I don't have biological children. I have a wonderful and definitely wild and wise niece named Lucille, named after my mom, Lucille. But I thought about the fact that Jesus' parents, and I'm sure his mother in particular, had to have the talk with Jesus. Now, you all know about the talk that Black parents and Black moms and dads always have to give to their young people, particularly the boy, but about what to do, how to be in the world, how to be careful, especially these days if you are stopped by the police. Now, this idea of giving the talk, this is actually a long idea. I was reading a story about Sister Thea Bowman, who's one of the African Americans on the road to sainthood in the Catholic Church, and she grew up in Canton, Mississippi. And she talked about how her mother was so upset and afraid when she saw little Thea one day, who, and her name was, when she was little, her name was Bertha. She saw little Bertha, said, "I'm thirsty," and went over to the white water fountain and took a drink. Well, her mother was like, "Oh my God," like pulled her away. And I know that was so hard for a lot of, Black children, because they would see their parents get angry with them, but in a lot of ways, their parents were very afraid of what would happen to them if they broke those segregation rules. Well, when I think back to the time of Jesus, well, the Roman soldiers, they were the policers, because Galilee and Judea was occupied by the Roman soldiers, and they had all kinds of rules. Things like, if they say that you need to help them carry something, you've got to carry their stuff for at least a mile. Now, if you said no to a Roman soldier, you were in some big trouble. If people talk about, oh, the crucifixion. Well, the Romans were crucifying everybody. It was a dangerous time. You had to stay out of the way of these occupying forces. And I thought to myself, parents trying to raise children in that kind of environment, somehow you got to teach them how to negotiate that, teach them to be afraid, teach them to stay out of the way, teach them to, quote unquote, make themselves small. And, Black parents and Black moms for sure have to teach their children how to negotiate this world, negotiate this time, especially in American history, when our history is trying to be erased by people. So how do people mother their children into being able to negotiate an oppressive system? And, it just makes me feel so sad, but mothers are just doing what they can. And then the only other thing, as I was thinking about mothers this morning, is that somehow in the United States, we have, and I know several of you healthcare professionals in our group, we've got like the worst record for birth in terms of mothers' health after the birth of their children. It's particularly bad for Black and brown women and indigenous women. And you would think, why can't we help to care for our mothers after they give birth? You know,
Amen.
a whole year of some postpartum care. We need to be able to do that. And we haven't figured out, or we don't have the will.
You don't have the will.
Okay. Thanks, Gail.
Sorry.
To be able to do that. No, you're right. You are right. So we honor all the ways that that people and so many people around this Zoom circle are mothers, and we're going to have time for community sharing. So this conversation will continue shortly. But as we're bringing this to a close, thank you very much to Jean. Thank you to Gail. Thank you, Mama iJoy. And we're gonna hear a little bit more from everybody when we get into our panel. And thanks, Mom, for getting us all to howl and for birthing me. Lord have mercy. Now the story, I have to tell some myself because otherwise she'll tell it. When I was a little child and I got constipated, I came in and I looked up at Mom, and remember what I said, Mom? What did I say? Unmute yourself. Go ahead. No, I know, but you got to unmute yourself to say it. There you go. Did you get it? You didn't unmute yourself yet. So I'll tell them, and then you can. Mom said, I walked
I'm
up.
sorry. All right.
Okay.
So,
What did I say? I came in there and I said, what?
you were sitting on the toilet and you were bending down like you were trying to have a BM. He said, oh, God made the hole too small. And I will never forget that. God made the hole too small.
Lord have mercy.
That's right. And I don't know if that's in the Bible or not, but
I'm somehow doubting it, but so just a short song to end this time, and then we'll move into community sharing. And Chaplain Joseph is going to lead community sharing today, but I'm going to put some words into the chat. And Mom wrote this, and we're just going to sing a little bit of it, and it goes like this. We are wise, wild, wonderful mothers living in the presence of love. Yes, we're wise, wild, wonderful mothers living in the presence of love. If we slow it down for a minute, if we take our time and reflect, then we'll know this for sure, and we'll know more and more. We are wise, wild, wonderful mothers. We are wise, wild, wonderful mothers living in the presence of love. Yes, we're wise, wild, wonderful mothers living in the presence of love. If we slow it down for a minute, if we take our time and reflect, then we know this for sure, and we'll know more and more. We are wise, wild, wonderful mothers. If we slow it down for a minute, if we take our time and reflect, then we know this for sure, and we'll know more and more. We are wise, wild, wonderful mothers. Thanks to our Wild, Wise, Wonderful Mothering panel today. And now, Chaplain Joseph.
Yep, time for community sharing. Thank you all so much for those wonderful insights into motherhood and what mothers have to put up with, what they have to do, and the inspiration that they give to all of us. My sister once said the other day, I'll quote her, "It is sad when you sit around waiting for mom to make dinner, and then you realize you are the mom." So I remember that she said that some time ago. Okay, so we have a lot of hands up. So we're going to start with a mom. Linda Bone.
That's me. I'm so glad I'm able to be here. And there's a number of things that I wanted to say. So I'll start with what I said before church started, that I'm really grateful to Gail for the mothering that she did to my grandchildren in baby college. They needed it. I needed some help. And it was a lovely milieu. It was a beautiful space where children really were loved and accepted and heard, set free to be their very best and beloved selves. And that's it's real important. I think I was thinking about what Jean said. Our mothers are, and we ourselves are, imperfect people doing the best we can in a world we did not create, coming from families that we did not create. My mother lost her mother to cancer when she was 13. And I always sort of knew that I wasn't the little girl she wanted. On the other hand, she was strong and brave and a great role model in other ways. And her love language is to make sure that nutritious food was on the table and that and she sewed our clothes and she made sure that we got to bed at the exact right time. And she did the very best she knew how, right? And the wounds that we have from imperfect mothering, the wounds that our children have from imperfect mothering, we have to figure out how to heal, and to be mothered however we can, right? And that, as grown-ups, we, like Jean said, we learn and we heal, and it's a lifelong process, right? And I think I want to say one other thing, and I don't think you have to be a mother to understand this, but in my personal experience, it took being a mom to have some empathy for my mother. I actually called it the first time I felt Joseph, kick me in the womb. I called her and apologized for not being the world's best daughter. I mean, that was transformative to me. And then the other thing I think is that for me, and like I said, I don't think it takes that for everybody, but for me, being a mother opened up a whole world of real empathy for every other mother on the planet. I mean, I remember being in Florence and seeing the Pietà in a period where I thought my son was in danger for his life. And, that way of relating to the suffering of other people from my own self strengthened my commitment to fight for a world where every child and every mom and every sister and every brother and every human on the planet can thrive.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Gaile, we're going to go back to Gaile at this time.
I have a question for Mama iJoy and Kim, because you were talking about the talk. And so many things you have to teach your child go against your mothering instinct, it sounds. And so I'm wondering, Mama iJoy, how did you have that talk with Kim? And Kim, do you have thoughts about that or memories of that?
So what the question is,
About the talk about negotiating the world that could be oppressive to Black children and Black people.
Well, I think everything needs to start early. Now, I know you might say, well, it's pretty late now for some people, but I think it's not too late to sit your child down and just say, you know what? And take your time. Don't talk fast. If you talk fast, the children can't process that. You have to say, guess what? You're sitting down. And I guess they look around and say, hey, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you something. In this world, you're going to have to be very careful. You're not going to meet people, whether they're police officers or human beings or neighbors, that are kind and understand. So you need to be careful, talk to me about it sometimes, and we'll talk again to let you know, I want you to be careful, because people have guns and some don't have guns. Some have money and some don't have money. Some may call you names, and you are not to get angry just because somebody says something. You can't stop a person for uttering something out of their mouth. That, for me, is the talk.
Okay, interesting.
And I remember things like my mom took me to the Franklin Institute. I think you and Dad did too. We went as a family, and it's a science museum in Philadelphia. And we went up to one of, they were doing those demonstrations, right? And do y'all remember where like they would take, sometimes they have kids touch this like electrified ball, and it makes your hair go up like that, just because of the way the current is and everything. And we went up to that, and the scientist that was explaining it said, "Oh yeah, so everybody touch this," and I went up to touch it, and he said, "Oh no, that won't work on black hair. If you touch that ball, your hair won't go up like the other hair," which was not true because I actually saw it happen. But I remember you, Mom, and Dad, both saying, do not say that to my child. My child is able to do the things that the other children are doing. So I remember that, and we know that was definitely 60 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was just that kind of, but being careful and of fierceness. And I appreciated that. So
Mhm.
there you go. Okay, so I'm gonna put you on mute because I hear your phone going.
That's
off.
right. Okay, thank
But yeah, so fierceness, so how to be fierce while you're also careful. And it's a tricky line, but we need both of those things.
We're going to go to Rachel Rose, who did our welcome today.
Good morning again, everyone. Couple of things. My mom and I were never really that close. Not to say that we didn't have a decent relationship, but she was not around much. She was a working mom when I was growing up, and then she married my stepfather, and she was always with him, traveling. He was a big time tax attorney in his day, and so they did a lot of traveling. I guess one example would be I was in military school, and I was the biology class that I was taking. The teacher would write the notes on the blackboard, and I would dutifully copy them down, and then I put my head down and close my eyes and listen. So I was paying attention, but everybody thought I was sleeping in class. But when he finished and started writing the next part, I would dutifully write that down too. And I was never a great student, but I aced the final exam. And I was so proud of myself. And I called my mother from the payphone at the military school on Long Island. And my mother's response was, "Well, the test must not have been hard enough." And it absolutely broke my heart. Absolutely broke my heart. That's the same military school where I was molested. That's just an example. What I really want to, what I've said to people since 2005, since my mom passed, you just don't know. It's like losing your virginity. You just do not know what it's going to feel like when you lose your mom. Now, for those who still have lost their moms, you know what I'm talking about. And for those who still have their moms, what I tell my friends is, especially when they're complaining about their moms, I'm like, look, you just don't know. No matter how frustrated you get, no matter what, spend as much time with your mother as you possibly can. Because I have to say that is one of my biggest regrets in life, that I had opportunities. I could have, even though she wasn't around much, I could have made the effort, and I didn't. And I'm talking about into my 20s and my 30s, and I moved to California when I was 38, and that was the last time I saw my mom alive, except for in the hospital bed after they had already put her on a respirator for lung cancer. And we had to eventually 10 days later pull the plug in 2005. And to me, as long as I live, that will be the worst day of my life. The day we had to let her go. the very worst day of my life. Even though we weren't, like super, super close or anything like that. And then being, and then just discovering my transgenderism and, all of that kind of stuff. I was cross-dressing in DC before I moved out to LA, and it was right after my stepfather had passed, and she and I were sitting at a bar having a drink, and I just really wanted to be that daughter. I wanted to be her daughter, but she, even though she was a Democrat, she was, socially conservative, and that was, not necessarily, this conversation she wanted to have at that moment. At any rate, I guess, what I want to impart is, if your mom is still alive, cherish her, because you just do not know the emptiness. No matter, even if you had the world's worst relationship with your mom, and she was a total bitch, the day that she passes, you just will not know pain, the emptiness that comes with that. So cherish her.
Thank you for those words, and I hope that the compassion and fellowship and care that we experience in this worship today, speaking about mothers, would indeed help to motivate you as well as you go forward. Some of us did not have good experiences indeed with our mothers, and it is good to bring that out too, and to show how, we can still, in spite of all of that, love them and care for them, so that, thank you so much. Now, I'm going to go to Craig. He put his hand down, but Craig, are you ready?
Yeah, the reason why I put my hand down is because Mama iJoy answered the question I was going to ask, but since then, what I'll just do is I'll leave a comment based on what Rachel just said, in that, yeah, I can see, the need for a child to embrace his mother, but at the same time, I think many mothers forget that concept of mothering, and you can comment based on that, because we are so motivated and, I guess you could say, caught up in the idea of being the it or the thing, the one. And it's disturbing because that now gets into how we treat, our offspring, our children. And I'd really want to ask Rachel, if he doesn't mind, or if she doesn't mind answering, do you feel that mothers, should pay more attention, to their children? Because I know that is an issue in our community. So many mothers don't care about what happens, to their kids. And, I think I think that trap is laid out by the larger society. So, that's where I am. If she doesn't mind answering that.
Yeah, no problem. As somebody said earlier, mothers are human and they're imperfect, as we all are. I know that I had an imperfect mother. I mean, if we're going to go by, say, Christ's example, or go by the golden rule, and it's something that I had to come to grips with. I even wrote her a letter, which I put in with her ashes when we buried her, and it was a forgiveness letter. I forgave her. If nothing else, she brought me into the world. If I couldn't forgive her, then what kind of human being am I? What kind of example am I setting for myself? Not too many people know about that letter. It was a thing between me and mom, but I had to do it from my own heart. I had to do it for my own self. It was not for her, it was for me. I think that that is the task of the child, to forgive those imperfections. That's the job of the child. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, being a parent, I would just make this one comment. Being a parent is hard. And I, give my utmost respect to anybody that has that willingness to take on that burden, especially in these times, because, we as people are fighting so much, the talk. And I'm hoping, that when we come to Father's Day, or Juneteenth, that gets, thrown in, too, because the battle is on division, and it starts between mothers and fathers. So many divorces. Why the father's not in the home? Why the mother doesn't care? That kind of issue, I would hope would warrant more of a discussion. Thank you.
Can I respond? Because
Okay,
one of the
okay,
things,
Gail.
one of the things you said, Craig, is that there are parents mothers who don't care. My experience is many parents who look like they don't care, they're not involved, they're not paying attention. It's not because they don't love or feel it. They often feel incredible, deep guilt for being that way. It's often goes back to how they themselves were parented, and they didn't learn how to do that. And they're suffering in their own pain. And it looks like nonchalance. It looks like whatever, they're just, being bad. I don't, that's just not my experience. I've seen parents who look like they're completely disengaged, but when you start talking to them about their upbringing and how they were parented and how what kind of parent they want to be, it's a very different story. Anyway, that's just my experience.
Okay. Yes, that's
I have a
true.
quick question for Gail. It's just a child development question. At what age do children begin to realize that their mother has an actual name that is not mommy?
That's an interesting question. I've seen children as young as 2 call their parents by their first name. It kind of depends on the family culture. I think generally the idea of that somebody can have multiple roles, and you can be a mom, you can be a daughter, you can be this, doesn't really begin to set in till about 6, would be my guess.
Thank you.
So, they're always going to want to call you mom because that's who you are, I think.
Because I think that's what we're talking about, right? Is that moms have multiple roles and their parenting is.
Now, the awareness that their mommy may be mistreating you or feeling like she's mistreating you, that comes later, definitely. And that has to do with how she was raised. That comes much, 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 much later.
Okay.
I would like to just say this one really short thing. My mother, she wasn't a good cook, but she could make the cookies that you would die for the cookies. You said, just send me to heaven right now. So I just wanted you to know, although she wasn't a good cook, she cooked and we ate and it was good, but she wasn't where people say, oh, go by her house. She has good food. She has good food. She couldn't cook, but you know what? She was the best cookie maker in the world. I just want to leave that in the air.
Okay. All right, we're going to go to Craig, Kevin, and Darius.
Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. I especially resonated with Gail's input because Gail's talk reminded me so much of how my sister and I were raised, where our mom always always strove to understand where we were in our development and in what our experiences were. And, you know, I know my mom's not perfect, nobody's mom is, but there was always a presence, and still is, of just complete and total understanding, or at least trying to. And that's so special because I know there are a lot of people who don't have that. And I'm so grateful that my mom was able to give Tanya and I that. And I see Tanya giving her son that. And that's a beautiful thing. So thanks. Thank you, everyone.
I have taken a position that there's no excuse for ever inflicting pain on someone else, especially someone smaller, you know, as a child. And my mother was just the opposite. I really had a hard time forgiving her. And I do believe she loved me. She believed in tough love, but she beat the tar out of me when I was a little boy. I believe she used the Bible, she used God. If you don't punish your child with physically, she told me this when I had my own child, you don't whip your child, do you? And I said, no, of course not. I wouldn't do that to someone smaller than me. And she said, but then you don't believe in the Bible. She was Appalachian and primitive, and she really believed you spare the rod, you spoil a child. Children were to be shaped up and turned into something to be proud of. And the biggest compliment to people in the South, especially, I'm from West Virginia, she's from North Carolina. Child is so well behaved. Just you could comment on that. You know, well, being well behaved is not what being a child is about, really. But that is exactly the goal that she had. They call them Razorback women from Appalachia who really, she was a school teacher. Her favorite weapon was a switch, you know, a branch from a tree, which really hurt with you. And she, with short pants, I mean, it's really hard to forget that. She inflicted pain on me and my sister, even more so, intentionally, because she wanted us to be a certain way. She wanted us to shape up. And she punished for moral reasons. She browbeat for moral reasons. And I've had to deal with it, and I have dealt with it recently, the fact that it was abuse. My father was a savior. My dad, I remember she'd get her switch ready and I'd start crying. I just start crying like crazy because I figured it out that she would whip me until I would cry loud enough and hard enough that she would stop. And then I'd look at the clock and see what time my dad would be home, which, you know, and I would try to cry until he got home so he could comfort me. He was the savior. So this is an extreme background. And it's really a test of the individuals I know personally to forgive. At the same time, I don't really believe she was wrong. I believe this is what she believed. And she used the Bible. She was God. God was on her side. She was self-righteous. This is not an exaggeration of my childhood from an Appalachian mother. She was a tough bird. And I finally have forgiven her, if that's the right thing. I honestly do believe she did the best she could with what she had to work with her background. Her mother died when she was a very young woman, 19 and 20. And she had just had a baby, and my mother had to take care of the new baby and four redneck brothers. I could go on, and it is extreme, but for example, how hard it was for me when I was in my 40s and I was having trouble with women, and I always did, thanks partly to her. She made the statement, Charles, why don't you give up on the women and find yourself some nice boyfriends? I believe she would maybe have preferred that I were gay so that she could have me for herself. Hard to forgive someone like that, but believe me, she did the best she could. Her tough love, it didn't work for me, but I miss her now that she's gone, and I hope she'll forgive me for talking about her. That's it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Chuck. So fine, we'll go to Jerry. You had your hand up.
Okay, and then after Jerry,
Well-
I just want to respond to that spare the rod thing. But go ahead, Jerry, because I know
Yeah.
you've had your hand up for a while.
Well, no, you go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay, so just very quickly, because that always comes up, and I know Mom iJoy, you talk about that too, where that idea of spare the rod, spoil the child is a popular saying, and people when they say that they're referring to that Proverbs chapter 13 verse 24, and that says, the one who spares the rod hates their child, but the one who loves their child is diligent to discipline them. Now, the commentary on that is that in biblical times, the rod was often used by shepherds to herd sheep. But the main purpose of the rod was to guide the sheep,
Right.
to protect them from danger, not to hit them.
Yeah.
And when you think about the fact that in the 23rd Psalm, it says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So in the Bible, good parenting is based on showing the child love and respect and guiding them, teaching them, and protecting them from harm, not in hitting them.
Yeah.
And that rod is for protecting them,
Mhm.
not for hitting them. So that's just one of those things. Okay.
Yep. My
That's
mother,
right.
my mother was not that hip. She believed the rod was a switch, and she used it with vigor, because she really believed it could turn me into some sort of a frickin' saint or something. But
All right. Well, okay. Maybe sometimes it's how we are socialized and the religious climate we have been brought up into as well. Bob.
Thank you, Joseph. This morning I'm finding myself missing my own mother a great deal. And she did an awful lot. She gave me an awful lot of nurturing in the course of my life. And one thing I want to say is that happened not only when I was a child, but throughout her life. She really helped me to get through some very tough times in my life. I would talk with her on the phone, and it was she gave me a lot of support. And I think it went both ways too. Especially after my dad died, I decided I would suggest to my mom that we talk every week. And we did. And I think I gave her quite a bit of support and nurturing as well. So sort of like Jean was talking about, I think I was able to do some mothering. And I was able to receive mothering from her. And I'm very grateful to have had that relationship of mutual affirmation and support.
Thank you. So last comment, Jerry.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, everyone. Very touching hearing all this. I just wanted to briefly acknowledge my own mom, who's been gone for a number of years, and my wife, Marissa, who is mother to two beautiful daughters in a previous marriage, and also the mom of all of our kitty cat kids. One who I remember had to be put to sleep on Mother's Day, and how sad that was for me and Marissa. I'll never forget that. But my mom, she had a rough time in Philadelphia. She had shock treatments and had some problems a lot, and parents were divorced, but she sold educational toys. And I was on a radio interview once on Thanksgiving talking about the terrible problems with these war toys and toy guns. And I mentioned my mom. And when I got home, Marissa told me, said Mom had called from Philadelphia to wish us happy Thanksgiving. And I said, oh, I'll call her back. And I didn't. And then, or the next day, and then the day after that, the police called me from Philadelphia and they found that she had passed, and she refused to go to the hospital. And I always felt bad that I hadn't called her back. And she was a great person, had a rough life and all that. I have a sticker, it says, "Every mother is a working woman." And if any of you want it, I'll just give it to you. And, so all I could say is I love them both, Marissa and my mom, Betty Rubin. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you all very much for a lively and rich discussion. We have looked at motherhood from a biblical perspective, a social perspective, from our own personal experiences. Okay, so we're going to have a song at this time. Thank you all so much.
Before most of you came on, Jerry Rubin sent us a message. Happy Mother's Day, including Mother Nature and Mother Earth. And this is a song by Starhawk. We will never, never lose our way to the well of her memory and the power of her living flame. It will rise again. Try that. We will never, never lose our way to the well of her memory and the power of her living flame. It will rise again. Through the grasses, like the grasses, through the dark, through the soil, through the sunlight, we shall rise again. We are searching for the waters of life. We are moving, we shall live again. Like the grasses, through the dark, through the soil, to the sunlight, we shall rise again. We are searching for the waters of life. We are moving, we will live again. We will never, never, never lose our way to the well of her memory and the power of her living flame. It will rise again, and the power of her living flame. It will rise again. Guess that talks about the ancient mother within us all.
Okay, thank you all very much for a wonderful morning service. May God, who brought us by birth into this world, strengthen us as we go forward to continue the work of being mothers, and those who are not mothers to continue to know that God's grace continues to sustain us. May the Lord, whose steadfast love is constant as a mother's care, send us out to live and work for others. And the blessing of God Almighty grant us peace, grant us health, and grant us continued love and fellowship, now and always. Amen. So we're going to unmute, and we all unmute, and we stretch out to embrace all the mothers and mothers to be. And we surround them and we say together after 3, 1, 2, 3.
Carry on.
Carry on.
Carry on.
Carry on.